Open the windows. I can already smell the roach spray. Coming through that door. I invited that filthy little cockroach myself.
20 years, and I guarantee he's still the same stinking, worthless piece of garbage we used to wipe our shoes on. People like him don't change. Born trash, die trash. That's the natural order. He exists so people like us know we're on top.
Then, a sound. Low, rhythmic, growing louder. Glasses rattled, napkins flew. Every head turned. A matte black helicopter dropped onto the country club lawn. Silver letters gleamed. Axiom Digital Systems. A black man in a flawless suit stepped out, unhurried, silent. The man looked at Chad and simply smiled. That smile is where everything flips, because they invited the one man they were certain life had already crushed.
Man, they really thought they had him figured out. Let's get into it.
Let me take you back, because to understand what that helicopter means, you need to know where Terrence Harrison came from. Valdosta, Georgia. Small town. Everybody knew everybody, and everybody knew their place. Terrence grew up on the east side in a two-bedroom house with peeling paint and a leaking roof. The front porch sagged like it had given up years ago. Window screens held together with duct tape. His mother, Brenda Wilson, worked 3 jobs. Mornings, she scrubbed toilets at the Palmetto Inn Motel. Evenings, she stocked shelves at the Piggly Wiggly, pressing her fist into her spine between aisles. Weekends, she folded sheets at Magnolia Oaks Nursing Home, sheets that smelled like bleach and old age. She never complained. Not when the electricity got cut and they ate cold beans by candlelight. Not when Terrence came home with his shirt torn and his eyes red. Terrence wore clothes from the church donation bin, pants always too short, shoes with soles peeling apart. He learned to walk so the flapping wouldn't make noise in the hallway. But that boy was brilliant. Numbers made sense to him the way music makes sense to some people. Effortless, natural. His science teacher once told him he had a mind that could change the world. Terrence held that sentence like a life raft. School was his escape, but also his prison, because at Valdosta High there was a king, Chad Brennan. His father owned Brennan Motors, biggest dealership in 3 counties. Chad drove a new truck every year. Starting quarterback, homecoming king. His name was spoken in hallways like a verdict. Beside him, always, Kyle Dawson. Not smart enough to lead, mean enough to follow. Together, they made Terrence's life hell. 10th grade. Terrence won the regional science fair. The Valdosta Daily Times printed his photo. For one day, he felt like he mattered. Next Monday, the article was taped to his locker. Across his face, in thick black marker. Still broke, though. Kids pointed. Kids laughed. A teacher walked past, glanced at it, and kept moving. Did not stop. Did not say a word. Terrence peeled it off, folded it, put it in his backpack, went to class. Senior prom. Terrence saved for 5 months. Mowing lawns, washing cars, sweeping the church parking lot. He rented a navy suit, not expensive, but his, the first nice thing he had ever worn. He walked through the gym doors feeling like he belonged. Chad was waiting by the punch table, red cup in hand. "Nice suit, Terrence. You look almost human tonight." Then he poured the entire cup down the front of Terrence's jacket. Slow, deliberate. Red soaking through the fabric like a wound spreading. Silence. Then laughter. Terrence stood there, punch dripping off his fingers, staining his rented shoes. He turned and walked out. Did not run. Brenda found him on the porch an hour later, ruined suit still on, face wet but silent. She sat beside him, pulled him close, and held him. No words. Sometimes all you can do is hold on. That was the last time Terence Harrison cried in Valdosta. Now, 20 years later, Chad Brennan sits in a cluttered insurance office. Scratched desk, ceiling stain from a leak nobody fixed. His father's dealership went bankrupt 8 years ago. His marriage is hanging by a thread. 3 months behind on his truck payment. But in his head, still the king. He picks up the phone, calls Kyle. I'm putting together the reunion. Find Terence Harrison. Terence. Why? Because it'll be like old times. Everybody needs a reunion mascot, right? Kyle laughs nervously. Don't worry about it, Chad says. A guy like that? Probably bagging groceries somewhere. If he's even alive. People like him don't make it. He never searched Terence's name, never typed it into Google, never checked LinkedIn. Because in Chad Brennan's mind, a black kid who grew up poor stays poor. That is the only story he is willing to believe. He drops the invitation in the mail. Cheap cardstock, Comic Sans font, and waits. The Valdosta Country Club sat at the edge of town like a monument to people who peaked in high school. White columns, trimmed hedges, a parking lot full of trucks and mid-range sedans. The banner inside read, Welcome back, class of 2006, in gold letters. Soft jazz played from rented speakers. The smell of cheap catered barbecue hung in the air. Chad Brennan stood near the stage in a sport coat he bought on clearance 2 days ago. Tag still on the inside. He planned to return it Monday. But tonight he looked like money. Or at least he thought he did. Kyle Dawson was beside him. Always beside him. Nursing a whiskey, scanning the room. You think he's actually coming? Kyle asked. Chad grinned. Oh, he's coming. I made sure of it. Told him the whole class was asking about him, that everybody missed him. He laughed. Can you imagine? Everybody missed him. That's the funniest thing I've ever written. The room filled up. Old classmates hugged. Old girlfriends avoided each other. The DJ played hits from 2005. People danced badly and loved it. Chad checked his watch, checked the door, checked his watch again. Then he grabbed the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the class of 2006 reunion. 20 years, baby. We made it. Some of us got rich, he pointed at himself. A few people laughed politely. Some of us got fat. More laughter. And some of us, well, we invited one special guest tonight, who I think is going to remind all of us just how far we've come. Compared to him, anyway. He winked at Kyle. Kyle raised his glass. And then, the sound. It started low, a distant pulse, like a heartbeat in the sky. Thud, thud, thud. The music was still playing, but people stopped talking. Heads tilted. Somebody near the window pointed. The pulse grew louder. The chandelier above the buffet table trembled. Glasses on the bar began to vibrate, sliding slowly across the polished wood. A napkin lifted off a table and floated to the floor. Then the spotlight hit. A white beam cut through the darkening Georgia sky and swept across the rear lawn of the country club. The grass flattened in concentric circles. Trees at the edge of the property bent sideways. The thud became a roar. Every single person in that room turned toward the windows. A matte black helicopter descended through the golden dusk. Sleek, military-grade body, polished rotors catching the last light of the sun. On its side, in silver lettering that gleamed like a blade, Axiom Digital Systems. It touched down on the lawn, gentle, precise, like it had done this 1,000 times. The roar faded to a hum, then silence. The cabin door opened. Terrence Harrison stepped out. Black suit, no tie. The jacket sat on his shoulders like it was born there. Every stitch, every line, custom. His shoes caught the ground without a sound. Behind him, Naomi Collins emerged, black dress, diamond earrings catching the last flicker of helicopter light. She took his arm. They walked toward the entrance. Not fast, not slow, like they owned the ground beneath them. Inside, the room was frozen. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Conversations died mid-sentence. The DJ's music played on to nobody. Chad stood on the stage, microphone still in his hand, mouth open, no words coming out. For 3 full seconds, the only sound was the helicopter engine winding down. Then Chad blinked, swallowed, and did what Chad Brennan always does. He refused to believe what was right in front of him. He forced a laugh. Loud, too loud. It bounced off the walls like a gunshot. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Terrence Harrison, give it up for the man of the hour. He clapped with one hand against the mic. The thud echoed. Now that is an entrance. Gotta hand it to you, Terrence. Whose helicopter did you borrow? You drive an Uber in the sky now? A few nervous laughs scattered through the room. Kyle jumped in immediately. He walked toward the windows, pointed at the helicopter on the lawn, and turned back to the crowd. Nah, I bet his boss let him take it for the night. Like a company car, except it flies. You do maintenance on that thing, Terrence? Polish the blades or something? More laughter. A little louder this time. People wanted to believe the joke. It was easier than the alternative. Terrence said nothing. He gave a polite nod, shook a few hands near the entrance, and moved into the room. Naomi walked beside him. Her jaw was tight, her eyes scanning every face. She leaned close to his ear. Say the word, and I'll end this before dessert. Terrence touched her hand. Gentle, a signal she knew well. Not yet. They reached their table, the worst table in the room, right next to the kitchen door, partially blocked by a support column. Every time a server came through, the door would swing and blast them with heat and noise. Chad had arranged this personally. Terrence looked at the table, looked at the kitchen door, pulled out the chair for Naomi, sat down. Derek Moore appeared within seconds, Terrence's best friend from high school. Now the head football coach at Valdosta High. Broad shoulders, warm smile, and the only person in this room besides Naomi who knew exactly who Terrence Harrison had become. Derek leaned in close, voice low. T, are you sure about this? I can shut this whole thing down in 10 seconds. One phone call. Terrence adjusted his cufflinks. Not yet. Let them finish. Finish what? Making fools of themselves? Exactly. Derek shook his head, half smiling, half furious. He squeezed Terrence's shoulder and sat at the next table, close enough to watch, close enough to move. Back on stage, Chad was rolling. The mic was his weapon, and he swung it without mercy. All right, settle down, everybody. Now, I want to take a moment to welcome all of our classmates tonight, especially the ones who traveled far to be here. He looked directly at Terrence. Terrence, buddy, seriously, tell us, how'd you get here tonight? Because I know that helicopter ain't yours. He paused for effect. What'd you do? Win a contest? Scratch off ticket? Did Make-A-Wish start doing reunions now? Laughter. Louder this time. Chad fed on it like oxygen. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. But for real, let's take a trip down memory lane. Terrence, you remember sophomore year? Science fair? Terrence's expression did not change. This kid right here, won first place at the science fair. Front page of the newspaper. Chad clapped mockingly. And you know what? I was proud of him. We all were. For like 5 minutes. Until we realized he was still wearing the same pants he wore the day before. And the day before that. Scattered laughter. Some people shifted uncomfortably. And prom. Oh man, who remembers prom? Chad's eyes lit up. Terrence showed up in a rented suit, looking like a waiter at his own funeral. And I, being the generous friend that I am, gave him a little punch to celebrate. He mimed pouring a drink. The men around Kyle howled. Red punch, navy suit, you do the math. Chad wiped a fake tear. Classic, absolute classic. Some people laughed. Others looked at the floor. A woman near the back put her hand over her mouth. Terrence sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, face calm, unreadable, like he was watching a movie he had already seen. Naomi's knuckles were white around her water glass. Chad was not done. But seriously, jokes aside, the real question tonight is this. He pointed the microphone at Terrence like a weapon. You show up here in a helicopter with your name on it, or somebody's name on it, and you expect us to believe what exactly? He leaned into the mic. Terrence, buddy, we grew up together. I know you. I know where you come from. I know what you are. And a rented helicopter and a nice suit don't change the fact that some people are born to lead, and some people are born to sweep the floors for those who do. Dead silence. Not a single fork moved. Not a single glass clinked. Chad smiled. Slow, satisfied, venomous. But hey, welcome back. We saved you a seat by the kitchen. Figured you'd feel right at home. He dropped the mic back in the stand, walked off stage, high-fived Kyle, and Terrence Harrison, billionaire, CEO, the man whose helicopter sat 50 feet from the window, simply picked up his glass of water, took a sip, and set it back down. Not a tremor, not a flinch. Naomi leaned over. How long? Terrence looked at her, calm, patient, almost gentle. A little longer. They're not done yet. Chad stepped off that stage like he had just won a championship, chest out, shoulders back, grinning at every face he passed. Kyle met him at the bar with a fresh whiskey. That was beautiful, man, Kyle said, just like the old days. Chad took the drink, didn't sip it, gulped it. His eyes kept drifting toward the windows. The helicopter sat on the lawn like a dare. Its silver letters caught the light from inside the ballroom every few seconds. Axiom Digital Systems. It bothered him. Not because he believed it was Terrence's. No. Chad Brennan would sooner believe the earth was flat than believe a black kid from the east side of Valdosta owned a helicopter. What bothered him was that other people might believe it. That the helicopter might steal his spotlight. That Terrence, by showing up in a way Chad did not expect, had shifted the energy of the room away from him. And Chad could not have that. He pulled Kyle and 2 other former teammates, Brent Coleman and Travis Sutton, into the hallway near the restrooms. We're doing class awards, Chad said. Kyle frowned. That wasn't on the program. It is now. Chad pulled out his phone and typed something. Brent, go find the front desk. They have a printer. I need 1 certificate printed in the next 5 minutes. What's it say? Chad turned his phone around. On the screen, in bold letters, Best Actor for pretending to be somebody. Brent hesitated. Travis laughed nervously. Just do it, Chad snapped. And make it look real. Gold border, fancy font, the whole thing. While they were gone, Rebecca Brennan found her husband in the hallway. She had been sitting at their table all night, watching. Quiet. Embarrassed. She grabbed his arm and pulled him aside. Chad, stop. Stop what? This. All of this. The speech, the jokes, whatever you're planning next. Just stop. Chad yanked his arm free. Relax, Beck. It's just fun. He's used to it. Always has been. It's not fun. It's cruel. And everyone in that room can see it except you. Chad leaned close. His breath smelled like bourbon. You know what's cruel, Rebecca? Working 60 hours a week selling insurance policies to people who hate me while my old man's dealership rots in a parking lot. That's cruel. Tonight, I get to feel like myself again. So either sit down and smile or wait in the car. Rebecca stared at him, her lips pressed thin. She turned and walked back to her seat without another word. Chad straightened his coat, walked back into the ballroom. The certificate was ready, gold border, fancy font, just like he wanted. He took the stage again. All right, everybody, we've got a special segment tonight. Class Awards. That's right. We're handing out some honors to our most memorable classmates. He started with a few harmless ones. Most likely to still be late. Went to a woman named Carla, who laughed and bowed. Best hair, 20 years running. Went to a guy named Dennis, who flexed for the crowd. Light. Easy. People clapped. People laughed. Then Chad's voice dropped. Just slightly. Just enough. And now, our final award. This one is very special. This one goes to the man who put on the greatest performance of the entire evening. The man who literally flew in somebody else's helicopter to convince us all that he's somebody. He paused. Let the silence build. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Terrence Harrison. Come on up, buddy. You earned this. Applause, but thin, scattered, uncertain. Terrence stood, buttoned his jacket, walked to the stage. Each step measured. His face revealed nothing. Chad held out the certificate like a trophy. Best Actor for Pretending to Be Somebody. Terrence took it, read it, looked at Chad, then looked at the audience. I appreciate the creativity, Chad. You always put more effort into this kind of thing than your homework. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter. Chad's smile cracked for half a second. Then he snatched the mic back. Always got a smart mouth, huh? Some things never change.
But I guess when you've got nothing else, words are free. Terrence returned to his seat. He set the certificate on the table. Naomi looked at it, then looked at him. I'm keeping it, he said quietly. Reminder. 20 minutes passed. The DJ played. People danced. But the energy had shifted. Conversations were quieter. Glances kept drifting toward Terrence's table, toward the helicopter on the lawn. People were starting to wonder, and that wondering made Chad drink faster. Kyle found Terrence at the bar, alone, waiting for water. Kyle leaned against the counter. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a $20 bill, and dropped it on the bar right in front of Terrence. The bill landed flat, Andrew Jackson's face staring up. Here, man, for the helicopter fuel, or bus fare home, whichever one you actually need. Two women nearby gasped. A bartender froze mid-pour. Terrence looked at the bill, picked it up, folded it neatly, once, twice, and slipped it into his breast pocket. I'll hold on to this. Thank you, Kyle. His voice was so calm, it made Kyle's hands shake. Kyle stepped back, then turned and walked away fast, like a man who had just poked something he suddenly realized could bite.
Another 30 minutes. Chad was drunk now. Not sloppy, mean. The kind of drunk where every word comes out sharp and aimed. He found Terrence near the terrace doors. Naomi had stepped away to the restroom. Terrence was alone, looking through the glass at the helicopter on the moonlit lawn. Chad walked up behind him. Close. Too close. He grabbed Terrence's arm, hard, fingers digging into the fabric of that flawless suit. Do you think this changes anything? Terrence didn't turn. Let go of my arm, Chad. You think a helicopter and a suit makes you one of us? Chad squeezed harder. His face was red. A vein pulsed at his temple. You were nothing. You are nothing. You will always be nothing. Your mama scrubbed toilets so you could eat. And now you show up here pretending to be somebody? In my town? Terrence turned slowly, looked down at Chad's hand on his arm, then up at Chad's face. I said, let go. Kyle appeared behind Terrence, close enough to block the exit. Naomi came around the corner. She saw the grip, saw Kyle's position. Her heels clicked faster on the marble floor. Get your hand off my husband. Now. Or you will hear from my firm before you finish your next drink. Chad laughed. Oh, she speaks. What are you, his lawyer? With what money? You bill by the food stamp? Officer Doug Perry, the off-duty cop working security, walked over. He looked at Chad's hand on Terrence's arm, looked at Terrence, looked at Naomi. Then he turned to Terrence. Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down. Naomi's eyes went wide. He hasn't raised his voice once. Not once. The man grabbing him is the problem. Perry shrugged. Ma'am, I'm just keeping the peace. Chad released Terrence's arm, smirked, winked at Perry. Thanks, Doug. Good man. He patted the officer's shoulder like they were old friends. Because they were. Then Chad walked back toward the stage. He had one more thing to say. The big one. He grabbed the microphone, tapped it twice. The room quieted. Listen up. I want to say something real tonight. Something honest. He looked directly at Terrence. Some people in this world are born into rooms like this, and some people, no matter how hard they try, no matter what costume they put on, no matter whose helicopter they borrow, will never belong. He let that land. Terrence, you were a charity in high school. You're a charity now. The only reason you're in this room is because I invited you. I chose to let you in. And we all know why. He spread his arms wide, so you could see, one more time, exactly where you stand, which is beneath every single person here. The room was dead. Absolutely dead. Someone near the back was crying. A man at table 6 stood up and walked out. Terrence's hand trembled. Just barely. The first crack. The first visible sign that the boy from the east side was still somewhere inside the man in the suit. Naomi grabbed his hand, held it tight. Derek Moore shot to his feet, fists clenched, ready. Terrence looked at him, shook his head. Barely a movement. Not yet. Yo, I'm not gonna lie. This part right here had me heated. Like, the helicopter is literally sitting on the lawn, right there. And they still can't see it. Nah, that's not ignorance anymore. That's hate with its eyes wide open. And what comes next? Oh, you are not ready. Derek Moore had been sitting at that table all night with his arms crossed and his jaw locked. Watching, waiting. Every insult Chad threw was another weight on his chest. Every laugh from the crowd was another crack in his patience. But Terrence had told him to wait. So he waited. Until now. When Chad said, "Beneath every single person here," something in Derek snapped. Not loud, not violent, just done. He stood up, pushed his chair back slow, walked to the AV table where the reunion slideshow had been playing all night. Old prom photos, football games, cafeteria selfies. Nobody paid attention to it. Background noise. Eric unplugged his phone from his pocket, connected it to the projector cable. 2 clicks. The slideshow disappeared. The screen went black for 1 second. Then it filled with a face every business magazine in America had printed in the last 5 years. Terrence Harrison, on the cover of Forbes. The headline was enormous, white letters on black background. Terrence Harrison, founder and CEO of Axiom Digital Systems. Net worth $2.1 billion. Youngest black self-made billionaire in defense technology. Derek's voice was steady. No anger, no drama. Just facts. Y'all have been talking all night about who this man is. So let me show you. He clicked again. Terrence, shaking hands with the President of the United States in the Oval Office. Both men were smiling. The presidential seal is sharp and clear behind them. Click. Terrence ringing the opening bell at NASDAQ, confetti raining down. The Axiom Digital Systems logo glowing on the tower screen in Times Square. Click. The cover of Wired magazine. The Quiet Giant. How Terrence Harrison built a $2 billion empire nobody saw coming. Click. Bloomberg Businessweek. Black Enterprise, a CNN segment showing Terrence presenting a $50 million check to a coalition of HBCUs. Click. A ribbon-cutting ceremony, a building with enormous letters across the entrance. The Harrison Wing, Atlanta Children's Medical Center. Each image landed like a sledgehammer. The room changed with every click. People covered their mouths. Someone dropped a glass, and it shattered on the tile, but nobody looked down. A woman at table 3 started crying. A man near the bar whispered, "Oh my God," loud enough for the whole room to hear. Chad Brennan stood near the stage. His face had gone white. Not pink, not flushed. White. Like every drop of blood had drained from his head and pooled in his feet. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Kyle Dawson had backed up so far he bumped into a table behind him. Chairs scraped. A water pitcher wobbled and fell. He didn't notice. Derek stepped aside. Terrence stood, slowly. He buttoned his jacket with one hand, walked to the microphone. His shoes made no sound on the carpet. He looked at the room. Not angry, not smiling, not gloating, just present. I knew what this invitation was the moment I opened it. His voice was low, even. Every word is placed like a stone. I knew what you planned. The seating, the jokes, the awards, all of it. I came anyway. He paused. Let the silence do the work. Not for you, Chad. Not for you, Kyle. I came for the 14-year-old kid who stood in that hallway with a newspaper article taped to his locker and the word broke written across his face. I came for him because he deserved to see this. Nobody breathed. That helicopter on the lawn? I didn't borrow it. I didn't rent it. I own it. I own the company whose name is on the side. I built it from nothing. 4,000 employees, $620 million in government contracts last quarter alone. He looked at Chad. You spent 20 years thinking about me as the kid you poured a punch on. I spent 20 years building something that matters. I think we both know who stayed stuck. Chad's lips moved. No sound. Terrence reached into his breast pocket, pulled out the $20 bill, unfolded it, held it up between two fingers so the whole room could see. Kyle, you gave me this tonight. Said it was for bus fare. Kyle looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. I told you I would hold on to it, and I will. I'm donating this $20 to the Valdosta Public Schools Scholarship Fund. He set the bill on the podium. And I'm matching it, times 100,000. The number hung in the air. $2 million. The room exploded. Gasps, hands over mouths. Someone screamed. Someone started clapping, and then everyone was clapping, not politely, not socially, desperately, like they needed to do something with the energy tearing through their bodies. Terrence did not smile, did not bow, did not celebrate. He simply turned, walked back to his table, pulled out Naomi's chair, and sat down beside her. She looked at him, eyes glistening. Was it worth it? Terrence glanced at the helicopter through the window, then at the certificate on the table. Best Actor for pretending to be somebody. Every second. The applause hadn't even died when Chad moved. He stumbled toward Terrence's table, not walking, lurching. His face was a mess of red blotches and sweat. The sport coat he planned to return Monday was wrinkled and soaked through the back. Come on, man, his voice cracked. Come on. It was just jokes. You know me. We grew up together. I didn't mean any of... Stop. Terrence didn't raise his voice, didn't stand. Just that one word, and Chad froze mid-step like he hit a wall. You meant every word. You meant it in 10th grade when you wrote on my locker. You meant it at prom when you ruined my suit. You meant it tonight when you told a room full of people I was beneath them. Terrence looked up at him. So don't tell me it was jokes. We both know what it was. Chad opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He looked around the room for someone, anyone, to back him up. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Every single person who had laughed at his jokes 10 minutes ago was now studying their shoes or staring at the tablecloth. Kyle Dawson was pressed against the far wall, arms crossed, head down. He hadn't moved since the Forbes cover appeared on that screen. He looked like a man calculating exactly how much trouble he was in. Then a chair scraped. Rebecca Brennan stood up, slowly, deliberately. She reached down to her left hand and twisted the wedding ring off her finger. It took 3 pulls, like even the ring didn't want to let go. She set it on the table. The tiny quink was the loudest sound in the room. I told you to stop. Her voice was steady, but her chin trembled. 15 years, Chad. 15 years I've watched you treat people like this. I've made excuses. I've looked away. I'm done. She picked up her purse, walked toward the exit. Her heels clicked on the marble. Steady, even, final. Chad watched her go. His hand reached out, half raised, like he was going to call her name, but he didn't. His arm dropped. His shoulders caved forward. For the first time all night, Chad Brennan looked exactly like what he was. A broke, bitter man in a borrowed sport coat standing in a room that no longer wanted him. Near the side door, Officer Doug Perry was trying to slip out unnoticed. He had his security badge half unclipped, one foot already angled toward the parking lot. Naomi's voice stopped him cold. Officer Perry. He turned, tried a smile. You witnessed an assault tonight. You saw a man grab my husband's arm, hard enough to wrinkle the fabric of his suit. You saw another man block his exit path. And your response was to tell the victim, the man who never raised his voice once, to calm down. Perry opened his mouth. I'm not finished. I have your badge number. I have the name of your precinct. And I have video from at least 6 phones that I can count from where I'm standing, showing exactly what happened and exactly what you did. Or rather, what you chose not to do. Perry's face went gray. Expect a formal complaint, and if I find out you've ever done this before, to anyone, I won't stop at a complaint. Perry didn't respond. He turned and pushed through the side door. It swung shut behind him with a heavy thud. The room buzzed with a new energy now. Not celebration. Reckoning. People pulled out phones. Thumbs moved fast across screens. Videos were already uploading. Within 10 minutes, 3 clips hit the internet simultaneously. The first, Chad's "You don't belong" speech, full audio, clear video. His face twisted with contempt, microphone in hand, pointing at Terrence. The second, the helicopter landing. Shot from a guest's phone through the window. The spotlight cutting through the sky. The silver letters. Terrence stepping out in that perfect suit. The third, Derek's slideshow reveal. The Forbes cover filling the screen. The room was gasping. And then, Terrence's speech. His voice is calm and devastating. The $20 bill held up between 2 fingers. The $2 million pledge. By midnight, Terrence Harrison was trending on X. By 1 a.m, Valdosta Reunion was trending nationally. By sunrise, Vanessa Stone, a reporter for the Valdosta NBC affiliate, was standing outside the country club with a camera crew, the helicopter still visible on the lawn behind her. The story had begun. And Chad Brennan's life, whatever was left of it, was about to come apart at the seams. The videos didn't just go viral, they detonated. Within 48 hours, every major news outlet had picked up the story. CNN ran a feature segment. MSNBC played the helicopter clip on loop. The headlines wrote themselves. Billionaire returns to class reunion. Bullies had no idea who they were humiliating. He arrived by helicopter. They still called him worthless. Vanessa Stone's deep dive report for the Valdosta NBC affiliate aired 3 days later. It was supposed to be of local interest. It became the most watched segment in the station's history. Because Vanessa didn't just cover the reunion, she dug. She pulled public records, interviewed former classmates, and what she found turned a viral moment into a scandal. Chad's insurance company, Southeast Regional Partners, had been flagged for discriminatory practices 18 months earlier. 11 complaints from black clients. Claims denied without explanation. Policies canceled after a single late payment. Something that never happened to white clients. 2 coworkers had reported Chad for racial slurs in the break room. The company buried every complaint, filed them under review, and left them to rot. Until now. Vanessa's report aired Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, Southeast Regional Partners held an emergency press conference. The CEO read a prepared statement. We have terminated Chad Brennan effective immediately. His conduct violates our code of conduct and core values. Chad watched from his living room, alone. Rebecca had taken the kids to her mother's house. The house was silent, except for the television. His insurance license was placed under review by the Georgia Department of Insurance. If revoked, he would never sell a policy again. The IRS, tipped off by media scrutiny, opened an audit. What they found was worse than expected. Unreported income. Fraudulent claims filed without client authorization. Money skimmed from premiums. Chad wasn't just a bully, he was a thief. Legal consequences came fast. Naomi filed a civil suit for assault and intentional infliction of emotional distress. 6 video recordings from 6 angles. Chad grabbing Terrence, Kyle blocking the exit, Perry telling the victim to calm down. The Valdosta Police Department filed misdemeanor assault charges. Chad's arraignment drew 4 cameras and protesters with signs reading, "Accountability is not optional." His public defender advised him to plead no contest. No money for a real attorney. No leverage. No allies. He stood in the courtroom in a wrinkled button-down. The same man who had held a microphone weeks earlier, telling a billionaire he was worthless. Sentence: 200 hours community service, mandatory anger management and racial sensitivity program, 2-year restraining order. The civil suit settled for an undisclosed amount. What was disclosed, through public records, was that Chad's house went up for sale the following Monday. Officer Doug Perry didn't escape either. Naomi's complaint triggered internal affairs. 2 additional complaints surfaced, both from black residents. One involved a 45-minute detention without cause. The other involved Perry threatening arrest at a family barbecue at 2 in the afternoon. Perry was suspended without pay. Kyle Dawson saw the writing on the wall. His real estate firm gave him a choice: get ahead of it or get out. Kyle released a video apology, 90 seconds, staged bookshelf, script clearly written by a PR consultant. "I want to sincerely apologize to Terrence Harrison for my behavior. My actions were hurtful and do not reflect who I am." The internet destroyed it. The bookshelf is doing more acting than he is. This man threw $20 at a billionaire, and now he's reading off his phone. Kyle deleted the video after 4 hours. By then, it had been remixed into 15 memes. Through all of this, every headline, every courtroom appearance, Terrence said nothing publicly. No interviews, no statements. He let the truth speak. Until 3 weeks later, when he returned to Valdosta. Not for Chad, not for cameras, for the kids. He stood in the gymnasium of Valdosta High, the same gym where Punch had stained his rented suit 20 years ago, and announced the Terrence Harrison Scholarship Fund. $2 million. Open to any student in Lowndes County with financial need and a dream bigger than their zip code. The bleachers were packed. Students, teachers, parents. He didn't speak to the cameras. He spoke to the kids. "I stood in this gym at 17 with a red punch on my suit and shame on my face. I thought that night would define me forever." He paused. It didn't. And whatever you're going through right now, whatever hallway, whatever locker, whatever name they call you, that won't define you either. He looked across the rows of young faces. The people who try to make you small are almost always terrified of how big you might become. In the front row, Pastor James Taylor, 83 years old, rose slowly, hands shaking, eyes wet. He reached out, and Terrence stepped off the stage into his arms. They held each other. The gym went silent, except for crying. Beside the pastor sat Brenda Wilson, simple blue dress, Sunday earrings. She did not stand, did not speak, but her hand was in her purse, fingers wrapped around a faded science fair ribbon from 23 years ago, the one from the article Chad had once defaced. She held it and smiled. 6 months later, Terrence Harrison sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor of Axiom Digital Systems headquarters in downtown Atlanta. Morning light poured through floor-to-ceiling windows. The skyline stretched out below, glass and steel and possibility. On his desk, next to a framed photo of Naomi and a signed letter from the Secretary of Defense, sat one thing that didn't belong: a fake certificate with a gold border and fancy font. Best Actor for Pretending to Be Somebody. He kept it propped against his monitor where he could see it every single morning. Naomi walked in with coffee. She set the mug down, glanced at the certificate like she always did, and shook her head. 6 months, and you still have that thing. Always will. Why? Terence leaned back in his chair, looked at it. Because every empire was built by someone the world refused to see. The DoD contract was fully operational. Axiom had expanded into 3 new sectors. Revenue was up 40%. 4,000 employees had become 4,800. But Terence didn't measure his year by contracts or revenue. He measured it by what happened back in Valdosta. The scholarship fund had completed its first cycle. 15 students, full rides, tuition, books, housing, meal plans, everything covered. No loans, no debt. No kid eating cold beans by candlelight, wondering if college was even possible. One of the 15 was a quiet girl named Destiny Williams. 14 years old when she applied. Grew up 6 blocks from where Terence used to live. Same kind of house, peeling paint, sagging porch. She had won the Lowndes County Regional Science Fair the spring before. First place. Just like Terence had, 23 years earlier. Nobody taped her article to a locker. Nobody wrote across her face. Because this time, there was a fund, a name behind it, a story that made the town pay attention. Destiny was studying computer science at Spelman College. Freshman year. Dean's List. Terence kept her acceptance letter pinned to the corkboard behind his desk, right next to that old reunion invitation, cheap cardstock, Comic Sans font. Back in Valdosta, Brenda Wilson no longer cleaned houses. She lived in a 3-bedroom home with a garden and a porch that didn't sag. Terence had built it for her on Magnolia Street, the same street where she used to scrub other people's floors on her hands and knees. Every morning, she sat on that porch with her coffee and watched the sun come up over the trees. Sometimes Pastor Taylor came by, and they sat together in silence. 2 old souls who had carried a boy through the fire and lived long enough to see him fly. Derek Moore's football program at Valdosta High had a new athletic facility, the Harrison Fieldhouse. Full weight room, film room, locker rooms with actual lockers, not the rusted ones Derek had grown up with. The first game played there drew the biggest crowd in school history. Derek hung a photo in his office, him and Terence, age 15, sitting on the bleachers of the old field. 2 skinny kids with holes in their shoes and no idea what was coming. Under the photo, a handwritten note from Terence. We made it, Dee. Both of us. One Tuesday afternoon, 6 months and 4 days after the reunion, Terence drove to Valdosta alone. No helicopter, no entourage, just him and a rented car. He parked at the high school, walked through the front doors. The hallways smelled the same, floor wax and cafeteria food, and something that might have been hope. He walked past the gym, where Punch had stained his suit, past the cafeteria, where he had been turned away, past the classroom, where his science teacher had told him he could change the world. He stopped at his old locker, number 213, where a newspaper article had once been taped and defaced with the word broke. There was now a bronze plaque bolted to the metal. Terence Harrison, class of 2006. Proof that where you start is not where you finish. He stood there for a long time. His fingers touched the plaque, traced the letters of his own name. He smiled. Then he turned, walked back down the hallway, and stepped through the front doors into the warm Georgia sunlight. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of a helicopter. his ride home. Yo, real talk, this story, made up. But that feeling of walking into a room and everyone already decided you're nothing, that's not fiction. That's Tuesday for a lot of people. And most of them ain't got no helicopter coming. So maybe, just maybe, be the one who stands up. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who had no idea what you were capable of? What happened? And what do you wish you had said? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If this story hits you in the chest, smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because the next story is even wilder. Trust me. Your circumstances are not your identity. The people who laugh at your starting line will never understand your finish line. Keep building. Keep going. And never let someone else's ignorance write your story.